Well, hello, my fellow caramellers. How you doing today? Welcome to another episode of Luka's Builds. A built one. I got a build one here. This one was featured in my last video about clear coats, and I've never showed this car before. And I know anytime it's kind of popped up in the background, and a few people mentioned it from the last video, it sparked some interest. So I thought I would feature it here for you all today. And we're going to let it just circle around here as I talk a bit about it. This was definitely something that I've always had in my head. I love this style of drag race car. Just a simple grassroots bracket racer type stock door slammer, whatever you would call these things. This one depicts a car that would have raced in the late 70s, early 80s. I was kind of going for that feel. And it's I picked the class Super Street, which was just one of them cool sportsman classes that I just enjoy those cars a lot. Just love the looks of them, and I just really wanted to go for this kind of paint scheme that was pretty common in the 70s. You know, having yellow, orange, and red, kind of following rainbows. Rainbows were a popular thing in the 70s. For styling, and people would follow that. You'd have white cars with different shades of blue or purple and blue, and I was thinking I felt like doing a yellow car and hitting on the red accents and the orange accents and kind of following the whole rainbow pattern right there, going from yellow, orange to red. And I kind of brought it up on the roof of the hood, as you can see. Now this was a car, a model kit I had always wanted to get a hold of. I had gotten one once before to do a different project, and I was building a NASCAR sportsman car, so I flared the fenders, that kind of stuff. And it was one of these Pro Street Novas. And Novas at the time, the mid to late 70s Novas were really hard to come by at the time when I got a hold of that kit. And that was what my passion was building a NASCAR model. And of course, that car never got finished. Maybe one day I'll show that one. But I just remember it had really neat tubs. And it was simple, but it was a really neat tubbed chassis. It was very surprising that this kit was ever done. I believe it came out in the 70s. Lo and behold, we got a nice surprise some maybe 18, 20 years ago, back when AMT was owned by Racing Champions, or they called themselves RC2. They put out the Street Customs, they called it 76 Nova. And on the box, as you see, it was looking like it was just going to be one of their regular street versions. And I picked up one of those kits and got pleasantly surprised to see that it had the tubbed features. There were no slicks or anything like that, but I believe these wheels came with it. We had your deep dish wheel right there, and of course the thin one there, but I don't believe any slicks came with the kit. Other than that, it was the old Pro Street or drag race one. I can't remember what they called it at the time, but it was they did it in a couple of different box arts, and I thought that they had vanished, and then all of a sudden, RC2 comes out with this kit. Nobody really realized it because it just looked stock on the box. I bought a few of them, and I had to build this model. It's just been an idea. It was an idea sat in my head for the longest time, and we had a lot of fun with it. Pretty much built it out of the box. I did some detailing, and I don't believe I used the stock engine, and we'll be showing that here shortly. The hood scoop, I couldn't stand the hood scoop that came in this kit. It was pretty lame. So this hood scoop is actually a resin copy of my favorite hood scoop, which was in the monogram 69 Camaro Z28, the white one on the box. It has the best looking, whatever you call those mailbox style square snorkel hood scoop. That just screams the 70s, man. I got a little problem with the hood. I don't know why. It just won't sit right. I have been messing with it before I started this video. So rip me apart down in the comments below. You're welcome to. It is what it is. I can't remember if it did that before. I don't recall it ever doing that. But this thing, it's 20 years old, 18 years old. I built it. It's ran its course of taking it to shows or anything like that, so I'm just not going to worry about it. I don't want to damage anything to try to fix that hood, but I cannot figure out what is causing it to teeter like that. But with that being said, I'm going to pull the hood off, and when this comes around, you'll get a little glimpse of the engine, but then we'll take a closer look at the engine, because that is really a cool feature. I didn't do a lot to the interior. It's just all black. I didn't put a lot of detail in there. There's like a cool resin shifter and resin tachometer that I used to make. A B&M shifter, I believe. We'll try to get a close look at that. But I put all glass. A drag car, you got to roll the windows up. And plus, I put my daughter's name as the driver, if you can possibly see that when it comes around. Of course, my name on the door, because I owned it, she drove it. That's how we looked at it. And I would always do my own decals a lot of times, and I did some cool stuff here, and we'll take a look up on here in a little bit. That kind of puts other people that are important in my life at the time as members of the crew. I just have a good time with it. I love building these kind of race cars, and I love stickers all over the race car. So let's get a close look at a few things on this car, and get a nice detailed look at it. So here's a look at the engine. I couldn't even tell you, I don't remember at all what kit that engine block came from. Looking at it, it looks like from one of like the Revell 69 Camaro or Chevelles or something. Those were great engines. Some of my favorite engines that Revell was doing starting in the 90s on up. They just did a beautiful big block. And even though I want to say, I think these valve covers were 24 scale valve covers. It's a 25th scale engine, but those came from the old Mean and Nasty Pro stock because they were gold, and then I just shot some flat clear over them. This is a resin carburetor that I used to produce. I mastered that and knocked that thing out. It was a combination of a lot of the best parts from different carburetors from different kits, and I put it all together and made a nice Dominator. And we did my treatment I've done in other videos in the past. The round wounds from a guitar string is my return spring. Just a guitar string, probably what pulled out of that round wound. That's a guitar string as my throttle linkage rod. And we've got a resin intake. That intake, I think that was a cast from the intake that's from the 57 Chevy Street Machine. I have a resin XL Supercoil that I had made years ago, and I mastered that. Quite a few other resin casters stole it, but that one is mine. If you can get a good look at it, let's get a lower shot of this engine. Maybe you get a better look at that XL Supercoil. And I'm going to turn a little bit so you guys can get this side of the engine here. What we did for the engine compartment, I got rid of the inner fender wells, and I ran these bars down that you would see in a race car like this, basically front sub supports, and it also gave me something to attach the fuel line coming around, and we go into the bowls. At this time, all the fittings and everything, those were just glass beads that I bought at a bead store, but I found these little red and blue ones. They looked like they were anodized fittings. I used those. A little resin Holley blue fuel pump regulator right there. Who the heck knows where that came from? And just little odds and ends and pieces that just taken from the parts box. And just to do a little filling in right here, this is printing plate aluminum that I just cut to fit and from behind poked in there to give the rivet look. It's always something I like to do on race cars, give that aluminum sheet look. Take a look at the bottom here. So looking at the bottom, it's pretty much right out of the kit. I didn't really do anything special to it. Just painted it probably Krylon semi-gloss black. That was always a go-to I always used for chassis back then. The headers are resin, I believe, and they were the headers that came from the 67 Chevelle, the AMT version, the Pro Street 67 Chevelle. Those are like my favorite big block headers. I love those, and I made a mold of those and cast them up. And these tips here are pieces of aluminum tubing. I'd bend it and then cut it off at the bend to give that little turn down look. And let's give you a nice close look at that. The engine has shifted around in there. It's kind of loose. It's probably a part of why the hood now pops up too. But I don't want to try to repair and move things around. End up busting the thing up and it'll never get put back together. And those are just out of the kit, ladder bars or whatever you would call that, your trailing arms. That's about it. I love kind of that look of a fabricated tubed rear section there that they did on this kit, if you can see. That's all out of the box. That fuel tank, everything like that. That's how it came out of the box. There's really nothing. The only modifying to this chassis I did was cut the inner fender wells there in the front. And another quick look. Just let you have a good look at those wheels are in the kit, I do believe. I did some tire stencils for those slicks and just whatever front tires I found. A little shot of the other side rear slick, and you can see right in there, very black interior, so I don't know if we can see in there. Try to get a good look. Let the light reflects. I can't really see. You see that B&M shifter in there? That's a resin B&M shifter I used to make. It was basically just cast from the Matt and Debbie Hayes T-Bird. You'll find it now that Revell has re-released the Hot Rod Lincoln Pro Street. It has that B&M shifter in it, just so you know. There's not much to really look at. You can't really see. I have a full scratch-built roll cage in there. There's a good shot. That was also my monster tack there. Was one that I kind of cobbled together from different pieces and parts to make one really cool tack, and I used to cast that. And that's what that is in there. But you can see my roll cage in there that I built, which all connects down into going down in the engine compartment. And that's really about it. Just let you get some close looks. I made the decals on my computer. That was white decal film, and I had to trim it all out. I wanted to get that kind of that real popular chrome lettering effect that was really popular in the 70s. And I went over how this was cleared with Tamiya Clear. It's all Tamiya paints. It was like really when I first started messing around with Tamiya paints back in probably 04. This probably was when this kit came out and I built this, because Andy's had just moved to town and opened, and that's where I started buying all my Tamiya stuff and I know I bought these kits from Andy's. So yeah, it was way back in the early days. And there's this those are those decals I was talking about that I made in the back. Just giving a little thanks to some people. I would always put my friend Frank Bennett, I've talked to him since he's the painter. He would always be the guy who painted my model cars. He didn't actually paint it. I would just throw the credit down as the guy who painted the race car. And right there I have Dana Conti. I was still married to my ex-wife at the time, and I would just throw her name on there, and it's still okay with me. She's one of my best friends. And one of my other friends, Jack S. Pot. We don't need to talk about that right now. But that is that with this. And we'll give you one last look of it. That's pretty cool.
You're watching the Luka C channel on YouTube.
So that's about it with this. Again, simple model. Few modifications, but mostly out of the box. You can have a really good time with this kit. If you ever find that kit, don't walk away with it. If you're a person who loves tub drag cars like I do, you kind of look at that Nova and go, it's just this street Nova, but it surprises you. Again, you had to do nothing to it to make it a tubbed race car. Nothing at all. I want to thank you all for watching. This was a lot of fun. And tell me what you think in the comments below, and let me know if you built one of these and were pleasantly surprised when you opened the box and found it to be tubbed. Sometimes we just get those neat little treasures that happen. So thanks for tuning in to Luka's Builds, and Well, we'll try to pull a few more of these out and let you guys see. Until then, go build model cars like this. Why? Because they're fun. Here's the producers.